Okay, about 15 years ago, I was involved in a particularly interesting program or project called Harlem Live. It was way ahead of its time, like a lot of stuff that we do. But the idea was that we were going to go and give video cameras and, in those days, desktop edit systems to kids who lived in Harlem, and we're going to teach them to shoot and cut their own video and make their own news stories. The reason behind this was pretty simple. If you look at local news in New York or any other city in the world for that matter, local news is basically made up of murders, robberies, rapes, fires, and then sports and weather. And it's 22 minutes of crap packed in every night. And for kids who lived in Harlem and watch a lot of television, like most people do, all they ever saw of their community was murder, robbery, rape, and fire, and occasionally sports. And that was it. And this is every night, every night, every night. And ultimately, this kind of drip, drip, drip of negative view of your own community has a really deleterious effect. It makes you think, I must live in a terrible neighborhood. Even if your own personal experience isn't that you live in a terrible neighborhood, you think you must because that's what television shows you every single night. Of course, television is this one-way street. So the idea behind Harlem Live, which as I said was way ahead of its time, was we were going to take kids in Harlem, we were going to teach them, we're going to give them cameras because they didn't have video cameras. And in those days, 15 years ago, video cameras were still big and expensive. We gave them desktop edit systems because that's all it was. In editing, I think Final Cut had just come out. And then we taught them to shoot their own news stories or community stories or family stories or whatever stuff they wanted to shoot and tell their own stories about Harlem, the place that they lived. And of course, their perception of Harlem was vastly different from what was on television. They came up with fantastic stories that local news actually never even bothered to, go and cover. But they made great stuff, and I thought it was really interesting. So at that time, I still had pretty good connections in New York, so I took the pieces that they made, the best of the pieces, and I took them to PBS, and I took them to WCBS, and I took them to New York One, and none of those people wanted to air any of this stuff. And the reason was they said, well, A, it wasn't done by our reporters. We only trust our reporters. And B, it wasn't done, it wouldn't rate. Nobody wants to really see nice stories or good stories or encouraging stuff. Every once in a while there's some heartwarming story about somebody in a wheelchair. But fundamentally, they weren't interested in what was actually telling the real story about what was going on in Harlem and what these kids' experiences was. So the thing died because we couldn't take it out anywhere and nobody could see it, except we used to do screenings at the school where we ran it, which was great, and everybody applauded, and it was terrific, but the thing died. It died because it was a bit ahead of its time. Well, it's no longer ahead of its time, because A, everybody who's got a smartphone, and that's pretty much everybody in the world, has a broadcast studio in their pocket. The thing shoots broadcast quality video, it edits, it puts in graphics, it puts in music, and you can share it with anybody else. And B, the most interesting part is, of course, the internet now makes cable and broadcast absolutely unnecessary. If you don't think that's true, just ask the people at Netflix or look at their stock rating. They don't own a cable channel, and they don't have a broadcast tower here in the middle of Manhattan. They get their signal out to everybody. So it occurred to us that what we had tried in Harlem, we could try somewhere else. And that's what, if you saw the live the day before yesterday with Samson Stiles, one of the guys from BET that we trained, that's exactly the experiment. I don't think it's so much of an experiment. I think it's rather an interesting project that we're just initiating in East New York, another community that gets absolutely terrible coverage in local news when they even bother to go out there. And most of the time, nobody even bothers to go out there. They live in like a colony of Manhattan. So we're going to go out there and we're going to build what we tried to do in Harlem 15 years ago, but now the technology is here and the ability is here and the gear is here and I think the will is here to make a completely different kind of, I wouldn't even call it news, television, entertainment, sports, whatever they want to do, it's fine. The more stuff they put into it, the better. And we're going to make it profitable. And we're going to teach the kids out in East New York how to be editors and shooters and script writers and producers and directors. And we're going to take them into this world of media that they've also been completely locked out of. And on top of that, we're going to give them a platform in which they can show news or stories about their community to themselves and the rest of the world. I mean, a lot of people still don't go to Harlem because they think it's a scary place, right? And the same thing happens to East New York. Nobody wants to invest, nobody wants to go to restaurants there because their footprint is bad because of the crap that local news continues to beat people with because they think fires and rapes and shootings are the stuff that gets ratings. Well, that may be the case, but you don't do anybody any service by continually bashing a very good community simply by picking out the really bad things that go on. And this not only goes on in Harlem and goes on in East New York, of course this goes on all over the world. Anybody booking any trips to Somalia? Probably not, because it looks like a terrifying place, because news always likes to scare you with the scary stuff. And in fact, most people are not scary. Most people are rather pleasant, and most parts of the world are not scary. But that's the problem with news, which is another story I can get into at another time. At any rate, we're going to have our first meeting in East New York with Man Up, and you should check this out. A.T. Mitchell's done a great job of putting together a whole support team out there, and he's got a fantastic organization, and we're going to work with them, and we're going to make a for-profit, very successful local television news station for a small community. It's going to be profitable. We're going to share the profits with the community. We're going to give the profits to the community, and the people who do the work deserve to make money. We're going to build a working model of what I think is the 21st century local television station. So watch this space.